Madam President.
Assistant Majority Leader is recognized.
Madam President, let me say a word of support for the senator from Connecticut, as well as the senator from New Jersey. I couldn't agree with them more. There is no reason why this information, full disclosure of this information, has not been made known first to the families, but certainly to the people of this country at this moment in history, 20 years after that terrible tragedy. It is time for the truth to be known. I support your efforts completely, Senator Blumenthal, and I'll help you in any way that I can. Madam President, on an unrelated topic, when I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois, I knew I was from a railroad family because both Mom and Dad worked for the railroads. I knew we had a pretty comfortable life. I've come to learn that we weren't by any means rich, but we did well enough, 2 older brothers and myself. And I knew that my mom and dad worked for a railroad, and eventually all of us in the family did in some capacity. I also knew that we were a union family. And I didn't realize till much later in life a couple facts. Number one, there were a lot of families around us that weren't that lucky. We were fortunate to be a union family. And secondly, what the union did for my family in East St. Louis, Illinois, it did for millions of families across America throughout our history. Those labor unions could stand up and fight for people who couldn't fight alone and have a chance to win. I have a healthy respect for unions. I believe that more than any other force in American history, the American labor movement, the union movement, created the middle class in America. I'm living proof of that. My mom and dad had 8th grade educations. My mother was an immigrant to this country. But hard work, a good work ethic, and the strong support of a labor union gave them a chance to earn a decent living on a safe job and to raise a good family. I reflect on that at this moment because we've lost one of the pillars of the union movement in the United States of America. Richard Trumka. What an amazing biography. I used to think back, I'd heard he was the son of immigrants, and I knew that he worked in the coal mines, but then I knew he also went to law school, and he became head of the AFL-CIO, the largest gathering of unions in our country. And if you ever met him with his little brush mustache and his gruff way about him, you knew he was no pushover. How could you be a pushover and head of the United Mine Workers Union, which he was at a very early age? How could you be a pushover and be head of a national labor organization like AFL-CIO? He did that, and he was an amazing advocate for the women and men that he represented in the labor movement. I can't even start to count the number of meetings that I attended with Richard Trumka. When we wanted labor's voice, we called Richard Trumka. And we knew that when that door was closed, he was going to be brutally honest with us. He'd spend a few minutes thanking us, and then he'd spend the rest of the meeting telling how we needed to do better. The working families of America were expecting us to stand up and fight for them. And he took no prisoners when he went through the roster and the roll call of how people had voted and where they stood on union issues. It was an amazing performance by a man who had all the credentials to deliver it. A man who was part of the labor movement, working in those coal mines, and a man who had developed the skills and talents in law school and beyond to be able to fight for those men and women. It's stunning to think that we've lost him today at age 72. That's way too young. He did such an amazing job as the son of a coal miner himself. You never had to ask ever which side Rich Trumka was on, ever. I've got to be honest with you. There are some people who are fighting for causes in Washington, D.C. because there's a paycheck at the end of the day. But there are some people who are fighting for causes that couldn't give a damn about a paycheck. They're there because they believe it. Trumka was one of those people. He was fighting for working people across the United States night and day, endlessly, 24/7. He was on the side of workers who build America's roads and bridges, of men and women who were not in the labor movement, but trying to become part of it. He fought for the men and women who kept our power plants running, our schools, homes, offices running. And he always asked one basic thing: respect and fairness for working men and women. He was with me on the DREAM Act. He understood, as a son of immigrants, that immigrants are a vital part of this country, and they should be for years to come. And Trump goes on the side of growing this American economy the right way, not from the top down, not trickle down, but from the bottom up. He believed, growing up in West Virginia and the life that he led, that it was critical that we be there for families when they made the basic decisions about whether or not they were going to buy a new home, buy a new car, be able to pay for their kids to go to college. He believed, as my old friend Paul Wellstone would say, that we all do better when we all do better. He was a giant who led the labor movement in America through one of the most challenging periods in our history, when his leadership was needed the most. It's on us now, isn't it? Those of us who think about Rich and what he said to us so many times, privately, publicly. The responsibility that we have is to stand up for the men and women who work in this country who don't have a voice otherwise. Our responsibility is to give those in the labor movement respect they deserve for fighting for the right cause. My wife and I, Loretta, and I send our condolences to Rich's wife, Barb, their son and family. I understand that he was with his grandson when he was stricken this morning. As a grandfather, I will tell you, it's a happy moment when you're with your grandkids, and that's the way it should have been for Rich. President Trump's friends, his brothers and sisters in the labor movement, to all the workers and families to whom Rich Trumka devoted his life, we've lost a true champion. America is better for Rich Trumka having lived and been part of fighting for those who work to make America a great nation. Madam President, I yield the floor.